Good morning. Hi. All right. So today I am going to be talking about how to reparent your inner child. And this is one of the most transformational things that you can learn to do in your healing journey. And reparenting your inner child really means creating a safe and loving relationship with your inner child. Hi. Thanks for saying hi. Welcome. And creating that safe and loving relationship with your inner child can help you come into connection with a sweet, beautiful, and vulnerable part of your psyche, your inner child, which holds some beautiful, wonderful qualities about you. Oftentimes, your inner child holds big pieces of your inspiration, your awe, your wonder, your creativity, your playfulness. But oftentimes, your inner child also carries a bunch of wounds and unmet needs and childhood misunderstandings that continue to color your world every single day. So, when you can create this loving and safe relationship with your inner child, when you show them affection and love, you take care of those unmet needs, you help them process those old wounds, it can have incredible impacts on your whole life. Not only is it generally really rewarding to connect with your inner child in that way, it usually feels wonderful. But it also can really help you shift deep seated patterns in your life because oh, good. Hello, hello. Yeah, let me know where you're from. Say hi. Thank you guys for coming. But yeah, so I have been doing 5 days of live streams about how to heal your emotional blocks. And this is day 5. All of them are recorded on my YouTube. So if you want to go to any of the previous days, you can. But we've really been talking about how to heal the emotional blocks that hold you back. And over and over and over again, I've been talking about how a huge portion of our emotional blocks form in childhood accidentally, right? But between the ages of 0 to 7 is when we are forming these incredibly specific and deep mental models of how the world works. And a statistic that I have said every single day in this live stream is that current neuroscience is showing us that 95% of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors actually originate in our subconscious mind. So our subconscious mind is so incredibly powerful. And a huge amount of what's going on in our subconscious mind was actually programmed and conditioned during childhood, especially between those ages of 0 to 7 when we're little sponges and we're constantly learning about the world. And when we're constantly learning about the world, like I said, we're learning what it means to be us. We're learning how others are going to treat us. We're learning what to expect from the world, how the world works, right? And we're seeing it all through a child's eyes. And so sometimes we have misinterpretations, right? Sometimes we interpret that we're bad just because our parents had a rough day and yelled at us, right? We aren't as a child able to say, oh, they had a bad day. That must be really difficult for them. This has nothing to do with me, right? We internalize if it happens regularly. If it just happens once or twice, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's a consistent thing, we internalize that means I'm bad. That means I'm wrong. That means I don't deserve love. That means I deserve to be yelled at. That means the world is a bad place. You know, all of these concepts, deep concepts that we're going to then apply to our life moving forward are deeply formed in those early years. And then they color our perception of our present moment and they color our expectations of the future. So it's a really big deal. It has deep and profound impacts on us, these mental models. And so when you can learn to reparent your inner child, you can lovingly help your inner child reality check some of this stuff or update them or let them know that the world is different than how they expect. But that's not the agenda when we're reparenting our inner child. The agenda isn't to change their minds or to tell them things. The agenda is to attune to them, to love them, to show them kindness and connection, and really create safety in that relationship so that they feel loved, so that they feel seen, so they feel soothed, and they don't feel alone, unworthy, broken, confused, vulnerable. Because one thing I like to remind people when we talk about inner child work is that things that are deeply vulnerable for children, may not seem like a big deal to adults at all. But when we're little, we are so sensitive, we're so open hearted, we're so trusting, and we don't have the ability to regulate our emotions when we're very small. We just literally cannot do it. Like it's not a capacity that any child has. There's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. Um, but since we can't regulate our emotions, they feel really, really big. And we need an adult or a caregiver or someone with a more mature nervous system and a more mature ability to regulate emotions to help us feel safe with our big emotions. And without that, our big emotions as a child will kind of send us spinning. They might send our nervous system out of whack because we just don't have the capacity to regulate them until we get a little bit older. In fact, we don't have that full capacity until we're 25. Most neuroscientists are saying these days. So that's pretty shocking. So anyway, so our big emotions, when we don't have somebody who can help us manage them, who can help us feel safe, will feel really big, maybe out of control, maybe confusing, maybe threatening, right? And so the inner child has a lot more vulnerability than our adult self has, and they may feel those emotions as more threatening or more frightening. And another thing I like to remind people about childhood is that we are dependent on our caregivers for survival, right? I call them our attachment figures, and it may be mom and dad, or mom or grandparents, or whomever was in charge of raising you, the people you attach to. Um, they are in charge of our food, our shelter, everything. So we cannot control the conditions of our survival when we're little, of course, right? And so these attachment figures have to take care of that for us. And what happens with that, that's important to recognize, is that our relationships with them then begin to feel like life and death, right? Because if they reject us, if they punish us, if they dislike us, if they abandon us or whatever, to a child, that may feel so frightening because that really could be a life or death situation. Now, for most of us, luckily it's not. We've all survived into adulthood. But I just like to share that because we forget how vulnerable it is. And it puts extra weight on everything that happens in that attachment relationship, right? That attachment relationship then becomes so deeply important to the child. And so when things happen in that attachment relationship that feel invalidating or feel scary or feel frightening, it might feel like, oh my gosh, that relationship is at risk. And if that relationship is at risk, then my very survival is at risk. So these attachment relationships in our childhood are so deeply important for everything that we then interpret about who we are, who others are, and how the world works, right? So there's so much going on in childhood that we are absorbing. And again, all of these mental models that we form during childhood color our expectations and our perceptions for the rest of our life. And that's why it's so powerful to connect with your inner child in a safe and loving way, to let them know that they're safe and you love them. And then we can begin to shift some of these deep seated patterns from a place of loving integration. So that's why inner child work is so powerful. And that's a little bit about attachment and why it's such a big deal in our lives. And now I really want to shift into talking about what our inner child actually wants from us. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm so happy you're here. So, what our inner child really wants, the deepest needs of the inner child of every child, like even our external children, if we have them or whatever, are to be seen, safe, and soothed, right? So that's, I break it down just to that. That is from neuroscience educator and a guy who's written a bunch of parenting books, Dan Siegel. He breaks attachment down to seen, safe, and soothed. And so that's really what our inner child wants and needs from us, is they want to feel loved. They want to feel seen and accepted as they are without having to jump through hoops or contort themselves. And they want to feel safe. And so when I talk about reparenting your inner child, everything I talk about is really encouraging you to figure out how to create that safety. What do they need to feel soothed? And how can you see them? And so oftentimes when I do inner child work, and we are going to do this, we're going to do a little reparenting meditation in just a few minutes. But I encourage people to get into a loving space with themselves first, which you can do today. We're going to do by thinking about people we love and feeling the love in our body, but you can also do through a gratitude practice. But when you come to your inner child, it's nice if you yourself can feel loving and be resourced within yourself so that you can come to offer them some love instead of you coming and needing love from them or whatever. And I also encourage people to come without agenda, right? You're not coming to your inner child to tell them to do things differently or to tell them to see things differently or to tell them what you're thinking. You're coming with the intention to hear what they want to share, to attune to them, to allow them to show themselves to you, right? And so there's a lot of listening that I encourage in inner child work, a lot of attunement. And attunement really means just coming to them with kindness and really seeing if you can feel what they're feeling and understand their perspective, really allowing yourself to attune to their needs, their perspective, and their love. So anyway, inner child work isn't too complicated. I mean, it can be, but I like to boil it down just to seen, safe, and soothed because I think we can oftentimes kind of understand what those words mean, understand how to make them feel safe, understand how to help them feel soothed, because those are our deepest longings, our deepest desires, are to be seen and accepted as we are, exactly as we are. And this can heal and repattern so many old wounds that are stuck in the subconscious because our inner child carries some of those emotional wounds. And like I said, childhood is so much more vulnerable than we remember when we're adults. And the inner child carries some unmet needs. And these old emotional wounds and unmet needs, they will play out in our adult relationships and in our adult lives. So let's say that as a child, you just really needed, let's say you really needed to be seen and heard, right? Like that's a real need. And let's say it just wasn't met. It just wasn't met. You just very rarely were seen and heard, or, somebody else in the family kind of was the one who needed to be seen and heard all the time. And so you actually, not only were you not seen and heard, you learned to defer all of your needs to someone else, sacrifice to someone else, right? So that need for being seen and heard will continue to boil up. It will continue to play out in your adult relationships, and it can continue to make you feel insecure or to project onto other people that they aren't seeing you, that they aren't hearing you, or it can make you feel kind of desperate as if you need water and you haven't had a glass of water in 13 years. You know what I mean? It can create these feelings within us. And again, it's coming from the subconscious, so we're often not totally conscious of that. But when you can go to the inner child and you can meet those needs, those emotional needs, those needs for safety, those needs for belonging, those needs for acceptance, it is profound how much it can calm you as an adult in your life and in your relationships, because so many of our emotional blocks that we experience as adults really truly boil down to unmet needs in childhood or old emotional needs in childhood. So let me know if you have any questions, and then we are going to move into a reparenting meditation just because that's what I really like to do. That's where you'll actually feel an emotional shift. The educational pieces of this, I hope, are very helpful also. Like, I hope I have helped you boil down a little bit what reparenting is and why it's so deeply important. But I think that, the rubber hits the road when you actually do something to connect with your inner child, actually do something to connect with your own heart, connect inwards, and feel a shift within you. Because again, this is how we can shift our biggest emotional blocks much of the time. Not saying that 100% of our emotional blocks come from childhood, but I would say above 90% do. So, all right. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so I am just going to move into the meditation. So go ahead, close your eyes if you're comfortable, or if you're not, that is okay. And begin just to feel your body. You can feel your breath. You can Feel the air moving in and out through your nostrils. You can feel the rhythm of your breath causing your chest and tummy to rise and fall. Feeling that rhythm, feeling the air. Go ahead and listen and notice what you can hear as you're feeling your breath. Like you can hear my voice, that's probably the loudest, but you may also be able to hear a number of different layers of quieter sounds. So, feeling your breath, listening to the different layers of sound that you can hear, feeling the weight of gravity holding you in your chair. And if you're leaning back against your chair, if you're leaning back against something, you can actually feel that the contact between your back and the chair changes a little bit on every inhale and every exhale. So just feeling that contact changing as you breathe. On your next inhale, imagine that you could breathe in through your heart and out through your belly button. And maybe you could even imagine that you feel the space or the distance between your heart and your belly button. Imagining you could breathe in through your throat and out through your elbows. Again, maybe imagining that you could feel the space or the distance between your throat and your elbows. Imagining you could breathe in through your right ear and out through your left knee. Feeling the space and the distance. Breathing in through your left ear and out through your right knee. Feeling the space and the distance. Welcome all the people who are just joining. We're doing a little reparenting meditation, and we're just starting by breathing. Now just breathing in and out through your heart. And then to begin with, just think of someone or something that is so easy to love. Someone or something that just brings a smile to your face, a warmth to your heart, a giggle to you, maybe just someone or something that's so easy to love. And notice what that love feels like in your body. So, where do you feel that love the most? Maybe it's everywhere, maybe it's a specific spot. Breathing in and out through your heart, just notice the quality of that love in your body. Notice the location of that love in your body. And breathe with it. Notice, does it have a color, a shape, a texture? Really letting your body feel that love. And as you feel it, it just becomes part of you more and more, becomes part of your awareness. Because when we come to our inner child, we want to come with love. And I have met and worked with some people who can't really love their inner child and they can't feel compassion for their inner child. And if you're in that spot, what I think that means is that there's some trauma programming or conditioning that's in the way, and that can be worked with. It's not that there's something wrong with you, but it is something you might want to work with because, again, your inner child is such a valuable and important and transformational part of your subconscious mind and a beautiful part of you. So anyway, we're just breathing in and out through the heart, feeling love. And as you feel this love in your body and as you focus on it and it just becomes more and more a part of your experience, your imagination is just going to call forward your inner child. Like you just see them or sense them in front of you. Noticing what age inner child showed up here. You can have an inner infant, an inner preschooler, an inner adolescent, an inner elementary schooler. All of those aspects exist in our subconscious. So just noticing who showed up, Noticing what your inner child looks like right now as you continue to breathe in and out through your heart. And from this loving space within you, just give your inner child a hello. Let them know you see them. Greet them in a way that would feel good to both of you. And as you are feeling this love within you, and as you're noticing your inner child, you're giving them a hello, notice that this loving energy within you just naturally starts to expand towards them. And it expands towards them in a way that feels good to both of you. And notice how they receive this love that's expanding from you to them. And they get to receive it in any way that feels good to them, right? Like they're in charge of their own experience and you're just observing and noticing. Remember, we're trying to see them as they are, not push an agenda on them. So even we don't even want to push love on them, right? We want to let them be in charge of their experience, let them receive the love in whatever way feels right to them. And there's no right or wrong way for them to receive it. There's no right or wrong way for this to unfold. But noticing how they're feeling, how they're receiving it, maybe looking in their eyes if that feels good to both of you. And as you look in their eyes and as you notice this love beginning to flow between the two of you in a way that again feels right to both of you, just begin to attune to them even more. So you're centered in your body. You can still feel your breath. You can still hear the layers of sound. You can still feel that loving energy. And if you don't feel all the loving energy right now, again, that's okay. It might not be the best time to do inner child work, but there's no right or wrong here. And sometimes that happens. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that there's something else happening in your psyche that wants attention, that may need attention before you can connect with your inner child. So that's okay. You can just honor that and allow that. But this might not be the best time for inner child work. So you're noticing this love, you're attuning to them, and just begin to connect to them in a way that feels loving and supportive to both of you. Remember that the key words with inner child healing are seen, safe, and soothed. How can you let them know that you see them, that you feel them, that you care about them? How can you let them know that they're important to you, that they belong here, that they're safe with you? And as you breathe and feel this love and feel this connection with your inner child, what do they want you to know? What do they want you to see? What do they want to tell you? And listen to them. And the listening may not be like a verbal thing, it may just be like an attunement thing, right? But listening is one of the most healing things we can do in any relationship. So just noticing what wants to be known between the two of you. How do you want to connect? Breathing, feeling your heart, feeling the space of love within, listening and attuning to your inner child, noticing what they want to share, and then honoring and validating anything they share, right? Honoring their thoughts, honoring their feelings, acknowledging anything that they want to share with you. You're being receptive, you're attuning to them, you're listening, And you're sitting in this loving field with them. And just noticing how this feels to your adult self. For me, when I can connect in a loving way to my inner child, there is such a sweetness there. It is such rewarding and warm work. And there doesn't have to be too much. I mean, when I work with my clients and my students, we go really deep. I teach them scripts on how to dialogue with their inner child. We practice dialogues between them, but you don't even necessarily need that. Really, just attuning to your inner child, letting them know that you see them, that you care about them, and acknowledging anything they want to share with you. That's the biggest part of this whole thing. That's how you start to create that safe and loving relationship that's so important for reparenting work, right? It doesn't have to be that complicated. Sometimes I just imagine that I'm holding my inner child and rocking her because she really likes that. If your inner child doesn't like that, that wouldn't be a great thing to do. But my inner child loves that. Even my inner adolescent loves that. Like, my inner adolescent has been coming forward more and more and more because adolescence was hard. She felt alone and ugly and, just worthless, basically. And when I can just be with her and love her, I'm telling her implicitly on a deep level that she isn't alone and she isn't ugly and she isn't unworthy. She's loved by me. I have her back. I'm creating the secure, safe, loving presence that she always longed for as an adolescent and as a child. I can be that now. And that's the crux of reparenting. So just taking a few more breaths here, noticing however it feels to be connecting with your inner child. Noticing if there's anything else that wants to happen between the two of you, anything else that wants to be shared. Again, you're coming to them without an agenda, so you're not here to lecture them, to talk at them, to teach them, to try to change them. You're coming in a receptive, attuned, loving way, here to listen, show love, and see what ways you can make them feel seen, safe, and soothed with you. And then we're just going to finish. I'm going to use a few questions here. They're called affirmations. Affirmations are one of the things I talk about a lot on my channel that I really, really love because they are a wonderful tool for connecting more deeply with your self-compassion and opening your subconscious to new possibilities. So as I say these questions, you can either repeat them out loud or in your mind, but just kind of consider them in this relationship with your inner child. What if all of your feelings are valid and always have been? What if all of your inner child's feelings are valid and always have been? What if you can become the loving parent and protector that your inner child always deserved? What if you're both safe now? What if you and your inner child both deserve this level of support, plus more? And just take a few more breaths here, noticing if anything else wants to happen for this to feel complete before you and your inner child. And really notice, how often would you like to consciously connect with them like this? How often would they like to consciously connect with you? And how do you want to move forward, knowing that you long to make them feel seen, safe, and soothed? How do you both want to move forward? Just noticing whatever answers arise as you ask yourself those questions. We are going to bring this meditation to a close now. So just taking a few more breaths and see what wants to happen with them. Sometimes your inner child might just want to absorb into you, absorb into your heart. Maybe they want to go run off and play. Maybe they want to sit next to you and just stay with you for another 20 minutes or for another part of your day. But just go ahead and notice what wants to happen with your inner child and just let that happen. And take a few more breaths in and out through your heart. Maybe put in the comments if you want to share how you're feeling now, what that was like for you. Anything that feels different now from the beginning of the meditation till now. Anything that looks different from the beginning of the meditation till now. Anything you're realizing. Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm going to stay on for another minute in case anybody has anything to share or any questions for me. But as I wrap up, I'm just going to tell you that I have a few upcoming events. I have a free workshop coming up and a paid workshop coming up, and I think they're both going to be awesome. So, the free workshop is called Perfectionism, People Pleasing, and Self Sabotage: Real Talk and Real Solutions for the Ways We Accidentally Hold Ourselves Back. So, that's happening February 1st. It's about an hour long, and again, it's free. And I'm going to be going deep into the subconscious roots of these patterns in our lives, the ways we accidentally hold ourselves back, of which perfectionism, people pleasing, and self sabotage are three very common ones. So we're going to hit specifically on those. Yeah, I'm so glad that was amazing for you. Yay, thank you for being here. And your inner child probably thanks you too. Um, so, yeah, I would love if you want to join me for my free workshop. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for it. And then I also have a paid workshop next week called How to Heal Your Inner Drill Sergeant. So, your inner drill sergeant is the part of your inner critic that's specifically conditioned by hustle culture and consumerism. And it's that part of us that always keeps us striving for more, never lets us rest. And if you feel like you're always exhausted, burnt out, can't say no, or you just are constantly striving to be something you're not, striving to be more and more and more, then it's likely you have that part of your inner critic at play. And so it's a 2-hour workshop where we're going to go really deep into working with that part of your psyche so that you can tap into your intrinsic meditation instead of continuing to be motivated by shame or by comparison or by some of these other things that likely are motivators in our lives, and also how you can tap into your innate wisdom and your innate worth. So, yes, you are welcome. I'm really happy that you joined me. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so if you have any questions or any comments, I'll stay on for another minute or two. I do have those 2 events coming up. I think they're both going to be fantastic. So if you want to join me for one or both or neither, that's great. But I would love to have you. Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you guys for joining. All right. Well, I think I am going to wrap up, but I'm so happy you were here. This will be recorded and put on YouTube, so you can always come back to it. And like I said, this is day 5 in my 5 days of live streams to help you heal your emotional blocks. And all the recordings are on my blog, and all the recordings are on YouTube. So if you want to go back and see the other techniques that I taught for healing your emotional blocks, go ahead and do it. I'm so grateful you guys were all here today, and I hope that you got a nice chance to connect with your inner child. Thank you so much for joining me. You're welcome.